I'm Timo Braasch, 34 years old. I'm born and raised in a small town outside of Hamburg. Spent my last 7 years in London. And now I'm in Arnhem, and it doesn't look like I'm leaving anytime soon at the moment. But that's where I'm from.
Yeah, you came to Arnhem, as you mentioned. What is your role within the shareholders group that is taking over Vitesse?
That's a good question. In the end, we're 5 independent people, so the roles are not clearly defined, let's say. I think what is important to understand is that when it was clear that this deal is going through, I came here with Leon and Dane to introduce ourselves, but also to see what's actually there, because there's a big difference between what's on paper and what you actually see there. And I'm the only one in this group of 5 who doesn't have a wife or kids. So for me, I looked at this and say, if I put my name on this, and we were thinking of just putting someone in the organization to run it for us. But the minute I came in and I saw the people, I had a conversation with everyone working here, I felt that if I put my name on this, I have to be here and do the best I can to help change. And that's why for me, I'm involved in everything at the moment. I think it needs that. So call me whatever you want. I'm just here to lead by example and to show that everything which happened in the past, we do the opposite. We're actually there. We actually put our own faces and our own work into it, and not just placing people into positions to do what we want to do.
Yeah, then a bit more about your background. Can you briefly tell us more about your professional background? What is your core business, for example?
Yeah, I can certainly do that. So I think before going to London, I was in a very stable and safe position. So I worked in a bank. I worked a lot on the real estate side. That's also what I studied. But moving to London really got my entrepreneurial spirit out, and that's when I started. I would say lucky a lot. I was at the right time in the right place to get opportunities. And the nice part about London was you have one shot. If you perform, you're in. If you don't perform, you're out. And that's a big difference between Germany, where you have to have 15, 20 years of background in this and that to even get the chance. And so that's when I discovered my entrepreneurial spirit. I started with building up a team for an American investor in Germany, in London, and then I at some point decided, and also again through football actually, met 2 or 3 people on the investment side who said, let's do something together. And right now I think my main focus, or what I think I'm okay in, is solving problems, difficult financial problems, or just organizational misplacements, which I think are big opportunities. And so you could call me a private equity a guy, call it investor, call it advisor, and also someone who loves, and that's what we started doing 2 years ago, making sure that we help in succession cases, and especially in Germany. There's so many companies out there who are small, who have an owner who is 60, 65, doesn't have anyone to take these things over. And with what I learned and my team learned in the last 7, 8 years, I think we're well placed with a young team of mid-30-year-old guys to take over businesses which might have lacking investment in the last 5, 6, 7 years, but have a good core business. So I'm very much out there looking to buy companies in the small, medium sector with succession issues where I think I can add value. Because in the end, for me, it has always been about adding value. If I can add value, I'm there. If I'm just there to be there and I can't add any value, then I think it's time for me to leave. And that's exactly the way I see this here.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about how the shareholders came together? Because as you mentioned, you're 5 independent guys. What was this process like?
Yeah, so it's hard to describe if you have not been part of this, because obviously this is going on since March last year, actually. So it's now over a year since I first heard about Vitesse and the scenario there. I've been approached in, I think, March last year by someone. I have a decent network in sports, so and whenever there's a mismatch and there's some difficulties, people come to me and see, because there's most of the time the biggest opportunity. So I got approached to this, or approached by people around the club to ask if I would be interested in buying it, because they knew I was in discussions with other football clubs in Europe, and one of them in the Netherlands as well. And so then it was very early clear that this is not a simple transaction. It's not as easy as everybody said it is. So in the end, it turned out that there were 25, 30 investors interested in buying this club. But the biggest issue was the people running the process, because I've participated in a lot of M&A processes, and so have a lot of other investors who were interested. But in the end, the problem was that the ask from the people running this process was so outside of the market and so hard to sign up for by any potential investor that no one really took the chance. And in the end, it was a process where it was clear, once the convertible note was agreed on by the KNVB, that the only way to do this would be in a scenario where, in my opinion at least, to do it as like below 25% owner, because then you know exactly what you have to do to get the shares. In any other case, you don't have it, because you are kind of in the hands of the KNVB and license committee for them to decide if they think you are the right one or not. And so when it was clear for me that I only would want to do this in a minority position, then it was a matter of seeing who else was interested in buying this in the first place, as a 100% owner, and then speaking to them and see if they are willing to actually do this without having control, right? And obviously you can imagine there are a lot of people who say, no fucking way I'm going to do that, right? Because in the end, to not have full control means also that you can't make any decisions yourself. And that is exactly also the situation we are in right now. But it took guts, and it took 4 or 5 months in working with legal departments, all of that, to make sure that everybody's comfortable with doing that. And then we had, between the 5 of us, before this deal actually happened, we had one more chance, every one of us, to say, you know what, this is too hot for us. We don't want to do that, because not having control is a very, very difficult. But in the end, everybody said, okay, let's go down this route together. We have all different skill sets, so we believe that we can add value here in a structure which is difficult to handle. As a 5 of you only know each other for a few months' time. But in the end, I think we could agree on what had to be done to stabilize the club. And I don't think that was hard to agree on that. And everything after that, we will see how things develop. But I think, for us, this process was an intense process, because you're in this with 4, if you want, so strangers. Leon was not a stranger, because I knew him from playing football when we were younger. But it is still, in the end, the question, what is the downside, what's the upside? And I think that will be one of the next questions from you anyway. But that is something which in the end got us all convinced.
Yeah, that was my next question. Why did you invest in Vitesse?
Yeah, I think and I was never interested in investing in football. I had a lot of exposure to football, because I love football and I have a big network in football. But looking at, I'm a risk-reward kind of guy. And in this scenario there were a lot of factors which were pulling me towards changing my mind and saying, okay, maybe I want to get involved in football. Because everything you want in football, Vitesse has. It has a big name, it has a big brand, if you want so. You have the history, the rich history, and the huge fans, and the super important fans which are there and standing up every time. Yeah, whenever the club is in the worst position, they are standing up and they are there to help, which you want to see. We had the luck, if you want so, that there were financial difficulties in the past, which usually make sure that contracts are not too long. So even in the operation or on the field or in the coaching staff, the contracts were very short, which usually is a big issue by taking over other football clubs, because changing the strategy and making sure that you can actually create change often has to do with also changing the mentality and changing some people. And usually the people who are there for the longest time usually you take over a big balloon of costs from people who are there for 10, 15, 20 years, but maybe are not the right people to embrace change. And here we had all of that. And we have a league where you can't relegate, so that you never have. Usually the club like this, let's take in Germany, goes into from second division to third division, and then it's dying, right? That's often the case. So here we have the safety net. We're at the worst possible point on the sporting side, not on the sporting side, but in the table, because the sporting side I think is very exciting here. But we're at a point where I think it can't go further down. We can actually implement a change because we're starting with a white sheet. So for me, this is the ideal scenario to invest into football. And if I look at the risks, I think they're very limited, because the last management or the people in the past have done us a favor by bringing it to zero at the moment, or maybe even below. So we can start with a blank sheet, and I think this you never have in football. So this is, in my opinion, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, and you're now here for 4 months, 3 or 4 months, I think.
Feels like years.
What's happened between your arrival at the club and now?
Yeah.
I refer to the financial field, organization level, but also on the sporting side.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Maybe we start with the sporting side, because there I guess we had the least impact, or we could have the least impact, or only very little impact from the start, because in the end the team is there. We came in when the transfer period was already over, so there was not a lot of change we could have done. But obviously we've seen on the pitch, we've actually seen games winning. We saw that players are actually giving a lot, and they always have done. But we saw, I think, the first 5 games or 4 games since we took over, we saw very good games. We won games, we got points. So I think on the sporting side, I guess it's more luck than anything else that we performed, and it had nothing to do with us, at least actively, but maybe with the spirit of knowing that there is a future for the club. But I don't think we've done much there to support, besides morally and leading by example. Which also brings me to the operation. I think for us, the most important part was getting the previous management out, because for us that was a key to success in the future, because we didn't think that their ambitions and attitude fit with what a football club and what would be the right thing to do for Vitesse moving forward. So therefore, for me, that was a key goal, and then also making sure that I have someone with me who knows the club well, which was 𝗩𝗢𝗟𝗡𝗘𝗥. So that was a key change for me, because that allowed me to actually also get a sense of what's going on in the organization, because you don't need to be foolish. If you're there for a week or 2 or a month or 2, you don't know as much as someone who's there for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, right? So and I think, and that's just my belief, and I might be off because I don't see and hear everything, but especially on the operations side, I was really, and I'm still trying to lead by example. I'm at 𝗙𝗡𝗡𝗘𝗥 every morning until every evening. I'm there on weekends. I'm trying to lead by example and to show what I expect from everyone in the organization. And it already changed a bit, in my opinion. I think that when I came in the first 1 or 2 weeks, people were still very unsure. They're still unsure for sure, because there's a lot of topics which are not clear. But I think on the operations side and on the day-to-day working side, there was a lot of, I wouldn't call it a depression, but it was after going through all of this for a year or 2, you saw that people were tired, people were unsure where the future is, and also lost their spark and their motivation. And I think that is something I believe, at least, that we helped, and also me and the other shareholders helped by being there, by trying to support as much as we can, and by leading by example, which is something which I believe in everywhere, on the pitch, off the pitch, with your peers. I think that is something which is insanely important, and something also we want to work on. But we don't need to be foolish. If things happen in the last 2, 3, 4 years, but let's take the last 2 particularly, changing everything which potentially, in our opinion, might have been gone wrong and have been done not in the best spirit, will take time to change, right? I mean, I'm here and trying to change it every day, but in the end, if you mess something up over years, you will not pull everything out of the dirt in a month or two. But yeah, I think that's the operational side. And on the financial side, obviously, and that is, I think, the biggest change. I think we took the big debt of the club, right? So I think that is that's the main goal. That is why the club is more healthy, significantly more healthy, and actually healthier than it was before, because with that amount of debt, there was no chance of surviving for the club.
Did your image of Vitesse change in the last couple of months?
I don't think. I mean, I think my image in the end was very much driven by the work I've done in the last year, which is mainly on the topics which were crucial and a potential risk to me, right? So when I looked at Vitesse, I looked at it in the very beginning, obviously as an investment, and to see, okay, what are my main risks here, right? And having the conversation with the previous people in charge, my image wasn't necessarily the best, but I still saw a big chance to change. And I think seeing that a lot of things might not go well is, for me, the biggest indicator of that is somewhere where we can create value. So I would say it has changed, but I think because I'm inside every day, it has changed in the sense of that I feel and see even more how much potential here is, and how small things can have a positive effect on the whole organization. And I think that is something where my image changed. But in the end, Vitesse is not me. Vitesse is not you or anyone else here. Vitesse is the city, right? It's everyone who works here. It's every supporter. It's everyone who buys a season ticket, but also everybody who's being on our social media and everywhere. So right. But so for me, I think the image of Vitesse is and should always be about being the club from Arnhem, and being able to bring this on the field and make everyone proud again here. But I think that is something which everybody knows, that this is supposed to happen. And in the end, Vitesse is and always will be Vitesse, right? So there's no big change there.
Yeah. Then during your time here, we've had a lot of points deducted. Can you tell us a bit more about the reason for the deduction?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly speak about it briefly, but as you can imagine, we're still appealing some points, so it's ongoing matter, so I can't say too much. But I think what I can say is that we, as a management and also as a shareholders, from the very second, have tried to do whatever we can to stabilize and make sure that we get rid of what we think is not helping the club at all, which also included, for example, former management, which then allowed us to introduce and to make sure that we have a management there, especially for the interim period, to make sure that we get to the end of the season in a positive spirit, which then also led to certain KVB rules where there were exceptions for the last 6 months, but these exceptions were running out. So for us, I think the point deductions happened out of most of the time unavoidable reasons, in our opinion, because we saw what had to be changed, and we would rather change it earlier and take another 3-point deduction in a period where we already have 20 plus points deducted. But in the end, I think what's important is this season is there, or from when we came in, it was all about how can we make sure that the future of the club is safe, right? And that is what we're working on every day. So point deductions happened mainly because of what happened in the past, unfortunately. So it's not that we as new shareholders could influence it, because we took over. Obviously, we inherited what has been done in the last years, and we also always hear this over and over again, that most issues we're facing are not due to the work we've done in the last 3 months here, but more with the work which hasn't been done in the last years. And I think that's where most of the point deductions come from. But in the end, the club, and I think that's a very, very important message, from the day we were there, the club has always been fully transparent with everything they had. And we have every day, internally and externally, tried our best to make sure that we do not have any issues. Because if you look at what we've done so far, I don't think there's a lot of things the KNVB or other organizations can point and say, you did something wrong. All the pressure and all every hardship we're feeling every day is because of what happened in the past, unfortunately. And I don't want to point the fingers at the past, but I'm saying we're doing everything we can every day. And in the end, it doesn't seem to be enough, because in most of these topics are concerning the past, which we can't influence, right? We can only influence what we do from now moving forward. So yes, we had point deductions, and yes, we're appealing the point deductions where we say, okay, this is really, in our opinion, not okay at all. The other ones we can argue about. Yes, we should have applied immediately having 3 management board members, for example, which we got a point deduction for, or a fine, whatever, one or the other. But there are situations where there has never been, or in the last year, there was no supervisory board, there was no full management board, there was one person there. And if that person has to go, then you need to replace 3 people, but the organization was slimmed by 30–40%. There are no people who can fill in this role. So obviously, naturally, you need time to replace these things. So I think we always acted in the best interest of the club. And if that meant to take 3-point deduction, but we know that the operation is more safe, that costs are more under control, and we have control over where the future is, then this is what we had to take in a season which has already been burned before we arrived.
Yeah, as you mentioned, some of the point deductions were unavoidable, but we did appeal against them. Why have we done so, and what may be the consequences for that?
Yeah, so I think you should only appeal if you have strong grounds that actions happen against you are not based on the actual facts or the rules and regulations, right? So that is the only reason why you would appeal. The initial point deductions and also the fine were things which could have been avoided, but that would be in the disadvantage of the club. So we decided to take the small points or the fine, but with the best interest of the club at heart. So that was clear. The last point deductions were in the club's mind, and also, I think in the minds of experts on legal and regulatory matters, not okay. They were, in our opinion, we have done, and the club has done everything it could. And if you then get additional point deductions for scenarios where you can really say and stand there and say, we have done everything we could, and you still deduct points from us, then you need to stand up, because at some point you need to stand up. And I think it was just for us a matter of time and when it makes sense to stand up and say, this is it, we have done everything we could, we cannot accept additional deductions of points for things which we have no control over. And I think that was the time, and that's why we did it. The consequences for it is, as in every appeal, if you lose the appeal, you might get the point deduction, right? Because that is what it is. In the end, we look at this and say, okay, but we need to stand up, right? We have to at some point say, this is it, we have given you everything you wanted. You can't just keep deducting us points for something which we can't fulfill, which is impossible to do. And I think that's where we stand. And what this means, we only know once the appeal is done, right? So I can't tell you when the point deductions happen, if additional point deductions happening. For us, we stand our ground, so we say the last point deductions were not okay, and therefore we have to appeal. And we are very comfortable, at least, or we have comfort that we acted in our best faith and the best interest of the club, and we do not think that should be punished. I think this should be actually the opposite. It should be looked at as, say, they are actually trying everything here, and we need to put the past behind us, because these guys do it as well. And I think that's what we're hoping and aiming for. That's why we're coming back with solutions over and over again to try to put these topics to bed, because we want to focus on football. everyone in the club wants to focus at football, and taking 10, 15, 20 hours a week out of 1 or 2 people to answer questions, to try to solve problems which A, we didn't create, and B, also where we don't even have answers to, is insanely tiring, and also I think creates an atmosphere which is not fair, because what we're actually doing, the whole organization, is working our ass off every day to make sure that Vitesse plays good football next year, and I think that should be the spirit for everyone, and that's what we're hoping for, which we will receive from all parties involved in this.
Yeah, then there is a lot to do about our transparency as a club. Why did we choose to stay away from media outlets and have not communicated in the past few months? That's one of the things our supporters are questioning.
I, as a football supporter, football fan, and someone who loves the game for almost 30 years now, can totally understand that people are not happy that they get only limited amount of information. Right? I understand that. But that was, we looked at the past, we looked at what happened in the past year, and seeing the strategy which has been approached last year or the years before didn't really get the results which they should have gotten, and we still ended up in the situation the club was in the end of this year. So looking at this and expecting media or anyone else like changing their mind on Vitesse only because there are 5 new owners would be foolish, right? Looking at what happened in the past, our expectation was that there's no short-term win in going out there and being vocal and being loud about things, right? Because we also knew, and everybody expected, that we will have conversations with the KNVB, and we will have conversations about the situation, the structure we choose. So therefore we decided to be quiet and make sure, and I think that's very important, which we learned from the last 2 years here, and that you should actually let actions speak louder than words. Because last year there was a lot of upset also within the employees, saying that we hear all our things out of the media, or we're not informed, and we just, one thing will be said, the other thing will be done. And for us, we looked at this and say we want to focus on making sure that we can solve the main issues immediately, and therefore we couldn't have any distraction for anyone in our organization. Because what people also shouldn't forget is, every time you engage in media, there's always people who say something negative about the club. The media has always found these people in the last year, so I'm pretty sure that they find them as well, and we've seen that they do. But for us, having one bad article which is baseless and then toning it down in 2 days' time, so we can then actually focus the rest of the week, the 4 or 5 days, on actually working, I prefer to do that than having respond to the allegations, to then have someone else who says something. Then we have a whole week where you and the team around you are busy with actually with trying to find answers and trying to engage with the media, whereby we need every person and every hour of that person in the organization to make sure we stabilize it. And I think that was a very, very clear decision from us from the very beginning. That's not because we're shy or we don't want to talk. I would love to tell everyone what's happening and everything what's happened here, right? But I think I'll save this for one of the larger outlets in the streaming world, because there's that everybody calls it Hollywood on the Rhine. There's certainly a lot of that there, but I don't think it should be out there. You know, I think what we should focus on is football and stabilizing and making the organization healthy. And once we have these topics solved, which I hope will be as soon as possible, and because we're appealing, we're also in, obviously, like, if you want to call it, legal conversations, and yeah, I don't think you should communicate these things, because in the end we keep the truth to ourselves right now, because it could be very, very useful to make sure that the Vitesse has a future. And therefore we decided to, unfortunately, communicate almost nothing to the outside world, because we will all need this information, and we can't start a spiral of question and answering, because we want to make sure that we are well prepared if it comes to a more legal conversation, that we know we have kept everything to our chest. We know the truth. We know what's happening. We have all the agreements. We have all the information. So I think the strongest would be to use that all when it's most useful for the club. And if that means we unfortunately have to ask the supporters and the people around the club to trust in what we're doing and giving us the time we need, because our goal is to make sure that we play professional football here next season. And that is the goal which everything else falls below.
Yeah, we've been talking about the license committee. Can you provide us with some insight in the reason why you've had affairs with them or some interactions?
Yeah. So I can provide you with information what happened, but I cannot tell you exactly why. Because I think one thing is very important to understand, that the rationale behind all of that is unclear to me and unclear to a lot of people who are involved in this process. Meaning that the reasoning and the question asked do not feel fair to us as a club and as the shareholders. That is what I want to say, at least. And I think regarding the back and forth, yeah, we have chosen to go down the route of having 5 independent shareholders to take over these shares, right? And there are very clear guidelines and obligations for these shareholders to do that, to be able to actually get the shares. There's a very clear protocol described in the KNVB rulebook, which we followed, right? And then it became, it felt like that we then after that have been treated, or it seemed like that we have been treated in a way that is not in line with the usual rule book of the KNVB for minority owners. But it felt like it was a bit, it was changed in the Vitesse case of, yeah, oh, we're asking way more questions, we want to know way more about the whole process, which generally is not an issue, yeah? But most of the questions were about the past, when we weren't there. So for us to answer what people have done who were there before us is very hard. So we gave them everything we had. I obviously spent a lot of sleepless nights over the communication, emails, documents of the last 2 years. But in the end, we do not have an issue with the license committee. We do not have an issue with the KNVB. We just want to be treated fairly, and we want to make sure that we can focus on football, because I think that's what the whole Dutch football deserves. That Vitesse is actually convincing people on the pitch, right? And I know that it is the best, if I'm a reporter somewhere, obviously for me, if my job is to report on Vitesse, I will report on Vitesse. And if I don't get any information, I will still report on Vitesse, because that's my job. Otherwise, I would have to quit my job, right? So I understand all these points and all these factors, which are also a big part of the license committee, because a lot of these actions are actually based on newspaper articles, which for me is even more frustrating, coming from a financial industry and having done legal contracts over and over again, and certainly also have had arguments over certain topics, but they have always been based on rules and regulations and wording, and I always had someone on the other side who wants to find a solution, because that's what you usually do in commercial law and commercial transactions. And here's the case of, we're trying to bring solutions, but I'm unclear if the other person actually wants to find this, or the other party actually wants to find a solution, and if so, what that will be. Because if you tell me what you want and I tell you what I want, we'll find a solution somewhere, and then we move on. But at the moment we're trying to find solutions, but the other side is not telling us what their solution is, right? They're not saying this and this and this is what we need, because this and this and this is what it says in the rule book. It's really just a bit difficult for every one of us to put this to bed if we don't know what it takes.
And then about the current situation regarding the license committee. The new shareholders took over the club with minority shares, as you've mentioned. Yeah. Why do we still have to go through this whole approval process?
Yeah, that is a question I can't answer, because I don't know it myself. It is currently argued because of what happened in the past. But if that's the case, then this will never stop, because if we always blame things today on what happened in the past, then how can we solve this? We can only solve for the future. So for me, I cannot tell you why this is happening. It shouldn't be, in my opinion, it shouldn't be happening. But in the end, I'm not sitting on the other side of the table. For me, it's just we're doing everything we can every day, and you can see and hear it in I think in my face and my voice that I'm tired of this, certainly, because it feels like if you try and work every day in and out to try to make sure that there's a clear future for the club, and you want to bring positive change, and then every other week you get a letter with 20 pages about what happened in the past, it is not helping anyone really to focus on what's most important. And yeah, I would have hoped that the KNVB and the license committee in particular is also willing to actually make sure that we move forward and we look into the future. But unfortunately, so far this has not been the case. And yeah, we're providing solutions and options and asking for things and over and over again, which the club doesn't have. And we're trying to find solutions with everyone involved, with all stakeholders involved. But nothing seems to be good enough.
And then there is this suggested connection in between the shareholders and common group or 𝗩𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗥.
Yeah.
What can you tell about this?
Yeah, I think there's a few things I can talk about. Obviously, all of us shareholders know 𝗩𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗥 by now, right? And common group, because obviously we did a deal together, right? It was not a simple transaction. So it's not that, oh yeah, I'm buying a house, I meet the owner once, shake their hands and say, here's the money, we do the deal, right? This was a very complex situation, which involved a lot of back and forth between us as a five, between the group of us, but also with common group. And for me, and I know no one likes, or a lot of people seem not to want to believe or don't want to hear that, but everything I've experienced was 100% or 110% professionalism of all sides, right? We have done our work, we have done our due diligence, and for us it just proved what we expected previously, that there's absolute nothing wrong, right? There's nothing wrong with common group. We don't have any direct connection with them, besides that we did this deal to buy the debt. And I also find it personally, and it also almost for 𝗩𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗥 and common group in general, I find it very disappointing that they have been treated the way they have been, because the 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏 saved the club this year, right? The last 2 years it was common group, if we're honest. And for me, I'm happy that common group is there, because otherwise I didn't get the opportunity to do the deal and to be part of this here, right? But in the end, I can only say that all our legal team, all our advisors, and the five of us had a pleasant experience to get this deal done. And in the end, it was goal-oriented, it was professional, and yeah, that's what I would expect from anyone in business. So I mean, I know people would love for me to say otherwise, but I can't. And I also don't think it's fair if people do that without any basis.
Yeah, then there is a lot of speculation about the club's license and about the uncertain future of the club. How do you see this at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, that is always the discussion. This is also always the tool which has been used in the past to threaten and to create narratives and to make that the club complies by whatever is wished of them. I see it in a way that there's very clear guidelines, and I'm sure you will touch on that later as well. There are very clear guidelines for a professional football organization to get the license, right? And that is, you'd have to have an accountant, you have to have a bank, and you have to present a budget, which if it has a deficit, you need to make sure that you provide proof how you're going to pay for the deficit. There's the three things you need to get a license. If you have these things in place, I think it wouldn't be fair, and I also think it will be tough to create the grounds why we shouldn't get the license. And I think I'm very comfortable on these 3 points. We have an accountant, we have accountant 99% of the way. The license committee and the obligations by the license committee caused a bit of delay on the accountant, because they asked the accountant to read through all the 200 pages or 400 pages of the last 2 years conversation between the club and the license committee, which added another 2 weeks on doing so, because the accountant had to go through that and confirm that they went through this. So therefore the accountant is a matter of time, and this is also very important for me. We have already provided, or we have proven our KYC and everything already to the notary when we took over the shares, to the accountant, to the bank, which is ING, which we already have everything confirmed, and there's everything okay. So for us, we have proven over and over again that everything is good, and we're working towards a sustainable and positive future towards the club. So I hope, and I assume, because that's usually what in my opinion, the job is of the KVB, that if we comply by these basic rules and basic regulations which apply for every club, that there shouldn't be any reason to not give the license to Vitesse for next year, or not give them to us, because we get them anyway if we comply by that. So not take it away for any other reasons, because I don't think that would be fair and logical.
Yeah, you've mentioned the accountant, you've mentioned the bank. Then there is this budget that you have to submit at 15th of June.
Yeah.
Can you give us a status update about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the budget is a big topic, because if you look at what happened in the club in the past, I don't know, 10 years, maybe longer, it was always the case that money has been spent, and in the end of the year, someone has to pick up the bill, which also creates an environment where spending is not necessarily there's a difference between spending money and investing money, right? Spending money means you just pay something. But investing money means asking yourself, why am I spending this and what do I get in return? And I think that has not been done in the last 10 years, because in the end, it doesn't matter if your budget is 10 million, you spend 10. If your budget is 15 would have been spent. I didn't see one year where someone says, oh, actually, we had more money than we expected, right? So that never happened here. And I think to create a sustainable future and make sure that we have, and Vitesse has a future whereby it is at some point independent of its owners and can stand on its own feet, that would be the dream for me. And I think also the dream for a lot of people in Arnhem and around Arnhem, that you're not dependent on anyone picking up the bill anymore, but you know that the club stands on its own feet. That this is not easy is very clear. But what we have to start with, and that's what we're doing, is creating ownership within the organization. Every department should be an owner of their own P&L. And everyone should understand that we don't want to waste money. We want to spend money where we see a return for us. And the return can be that it helps us in the day-to-day business. It can be that we actually create revenue on the other side. It can be that we bring in a person who potentially can replace two because they are more efficient, or they are more senior. So I think that is really what our big work is at the moment. And because this hasn't been done in the last 10 years, which is surprising to me, because every normal business would usually do that, it is really our main focus to make sure that if we have a budget, that this budget we all understand. Because if I go in the organization, I want everyone understand what they spend and why. So we can then also make sure that we invest wisely to actually get the best return for what we do. And by return, I mean value for the club. And I think that is what we spend a lot of time on, which also needs a lot of education within the organization, and also proper monitoring and proper actually starting with the basics. So that's what we're doing. We're starting with the basics to make sure that whenever you invest, you know this is where the baseline is, this is what we need to survive, this is what we need to run this club, to then decide this is where we can punctually say we can invest there because we see that helps this organization or this part of the organization, or we spend a bit more money here because we think that creates value within the team and people are more happy. So I think these things should happen with a basis of knowing what the costs are and why. And this is what we're doing right now. We're turning every stone once to make sure that we know who is there. And only then we can appoint people to say, can you please, on the finance side, can you please be the CFO? This is the baseline. We've turned every stone. Now you can do your work to make this more efficient or better. But I think it's like an inventory in a supermarket. That's what we're doing. I'm looking at every list. I'm looking at every department and see where do we stand, and does this make sense, or is it just something which has been taken over for the last 10 years but doesn't make any sense and doesn't create any value for the organization?
Yeah, then there is part of the budget that is the main sponsor. Main sponsorship for next season. We're running out of contact with them now. Did we already manage to find a new one?
Yeah, we're in talks with, I think, 3 potential main sponsors, which we, out of a group of, I think it was 5 or 6, we narrowed it down. So I think there's now a good position for the club to decide which direction do we want to go. We would be happy with either of them, but I think for us it's really what brings the most strategic value here. And I think for us it's also making sure that that represents who Vitesse is, and also can, like I said, add value to that. But I'm confident that we have a main sponsor soon, and I also that's also very important for me. We're now with the last game. We want we have people there to see the atmosphere, to see what it means to be part of Vitesse, and that's not only on the sponsor side, but also on a few other topics. We will have people in the stadium, and we had people in the stadium in the past, to get a feel for what it means to be at Vitesse, to make sure that the sponsor also understands who we are and what the DNA of Vitesse is.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about the future plans instead of stuck into the past.
I prefer that.
Even though we have remained a bit stuck in the past, we need to look forward right now. Can you tell us a bit more about the short and long-term plans of Vitesse and the shareholders?
Yeah. Let's start with Vitesse. I think the short-term plan is to stabilize everything, right? So because that is really, we need to build from now until the end of the season, we need to build a foundation to go into a new season on the operation, on the sporting side, where we feel comfortable with building from there. And I think that is the main goal. And like I said, there are a few things which are inevitably that they have to be taken care of. And that is something we focus on the short term, because we want to go into a new season with having all these headaches been gone, right? Having everything which we took over from the past been dealt with, to make sure that we can start with a clean sheet. That is certainly the short-term goal. And we are also very, very happy that we get a lot of support from people in and around the club, right? I mean, the stakeholders are there almost every day to help us on the operations side, to take some work off my shoulders and some pressure off my shoulders, but also really supporting and also being crucial and asking the questions like other people don't, to make sure that we have a stable future. So short-term plan is certainly set up the structure and the operation, and that also it goes for the team to make sure that we have a foundation of which we can start into a new season with a lot of comfort, with a lot of pride to be part of Vitesse for everyone again. And that is really the short-term goal. The long-term goal, and long-term defined, it can be a year, it can be 2, but the long-term goal, and I would prefer to call it a mid to long-term goal, is to be back in the first division, yeah, be promoting. That's like that is the mid and long-term goal. But doing that, I would rather do that in 2 years' time with an average age of 21 than doing it this year with 8 loan players and an average age of 28, right? So I think sustainability is on and off the pitch important, and we have an incredible academy. We have, and we've seen it this year. I think the academy saved the club, and also created an environment where we know that Arnhem is taken seriously from other clubs. We see that we produce a lot of talent, and I think that's very important. So for us, talent development, creating long-term value is, I think, the most important for us in the mid to long term. And that with people in Arnhem, with our own talents, but also looking over the border to make sure that we capture as much talent as we can, to make sure that we have a combination out of what the club and the country is known for, in combination with a bit of punctual support, to make sure that we can really make a difference and be more open-minded. Because I think football is always, I see that in different countries, they're doing their thing, which they've done for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. They've always worked with the same people. They said, no, we don't want to look in this direction, not look in this direction. And I think that's why our shareholder group is very healthy, because we are looking at these things. We have Flint, who has been at Liverpool for years, right? He knows how these clubs work, but also we have the energy and we bring in entrepreneurial spirit and also thinking outside the box, because I think that is also something which in football is very much needed, to be open, to in the end, like I said before, subordinate everything under the goal. And the goal is sustainability, having a healthy organization and playing fabulous football on the pitch with young players, to create long-term value. And that is the goal, and whoever follows that is welcome. Whoever is not interested in following that spirit and that way moving forward in and outside the organization, they're more than welcome to leave. Because I think that should be the overall goal. And if someone thinks they're bigger than that goal or that club, then yeah, it's certainly somewhere a welcome, but not here.
And about the shareholders itself?
The shareholders itself, I think for us, there's obviously we didn't do that just because we're a charity, right? So in the end, our goal is to create value, because that value also translates to money and return, right? So in the end, we did this because we love football, but we also did this because we saw this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, not only in football, but also as a sports investor and part of a potentially a new era. Because I think the combination out of having the old boys in there who know their tricks for 30 years and bringing some young, fresh energy, and I think that is the combination. If both are open to that, I think that's the combination which in football should be seriously looked at and maybe more integrated in organizations.
Yeah, you've mentioned Arnhem. Our region is very important, as you know. There has been a lot of people and a lot of supporters who like to see that Vitesse will get back to the region, to be a club from the region. And currently we are working on a new positioning, as you know. Is this a wish you share?
Oh, absolutely. I think and I'm German, and obviously we have a big football culture, right? And for us it's even more extreme in Germany that the fans own 51% of the club everywhere, right? So therefore the club is always in the city or within the fans. And I think as much as I as investor might not like that too much, because I see insane opportunity in Germany to get involved there, but I understand the principle of it. I don't think it needs to be 51% ownership, but I think that, and to be honest and to be fair, I think it would be foolish to say that it is not the city, right? At the moment, the reason why the club is where it is because of the fans, and most of the fans, or a lot of these fans, are from Arnhem, right? So I think the club is the city, and always has been the city, or at least like in the last year, because without the city, without the entrepreneurs of the 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗚𝗘𝗥 in the city, without the fans, every supporter, the club wouldn't be here anymore. So I think saying that we want to bring the club back to Arnhem, I think the club is in Arnhem and will always stay in Arnhem. But of course we can do more to put that into actions, right? But in the end, I think everybody should remind themselves why the club is, and that the club is still there is due to the people of Arnhem, and obviously also to 2 years of saving from people outside the club, right? In this case, Common Group. But in the end, it is really important, right? And it's also, and that's also the way I treat people, and I treat everyone, and I think everybody who knows me knows that as well. I treat everyone with respect, and I give them the benefit of the doubt and the trust, as long as I do not have any reasons to not to. And for me, a newspaper article wouldn't be a reason to not to if I speak to that person and I think this is all untrue. And the way I see this here, and that's what I'm also not asking from the supporters, because everybody has their own values, right? But the way my values are giving everyone a chance and giving them the benefit of the doubt in a positive way until I've been proven otherwise. And so far, everything we've heard is baseless media articles, but no proof or nothing. So for me, I would have loved to see the supporters supporting us until they have any reason to doubt that what we're doing is the right for the club. And I think the word supporter already says support, right? And we see the support, and we see the support in the stadium. We see the support at the games. But what I also would love is the support for the organization as a whole, right? And that's maybe something which is a bit also due to our communication, which we decided to not do publicly. Is certainly scratched a bit, and there might be a bit of a mismatch there, which will be changed in the future. I can guarantee that. But I still would hope and would love for people to treat me the way I treat them, And I think that is with respect and giving people the benefit of the doubt until it's proven otherwise.
Yeah, getting back to this positioning, when can we expect the launch?
Yeah, that is a good question. For me, obviously, these are decisions where 𝗩𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗥 plays a big role in, I have to say, because like he knows the club and the people here better than I do, and I don't think it would be right for me to come up with a new positioning after being 2.5 or 3 months in the city. But I think what we also want to make sure, and that's why it might take a week or two longer than people would like to, I think it's for us important to get the input and also the feedback and to make sure that we do it right. And we only have a chance to do that once. So for us, we are still awaiting a bit of input from stakeholders in and around the club to make sure that the positioning we bring forward is exactly what is needed. But I can tell you that much, that the positioning is very much focused on making sure that we are more Arnhem than we already are.
Then we'll go over to the sporting side. Are there talks already with players, staff for next season?
Yeah, so I think that is a point which is also part of the way we act here, right? So everybody from the outside world is asking us, oh yeah, what is the sporting strategy? How do you do it? How do you know what to do? All of these things, right? For me, I want to make clear is that we have internal and external experts which help me make decisions. But I can tell you, since I'm here, I've spoken to 10, 12, 15 players in person at Papendal, showed them the stadium. Not that we need that many players, but I think what needs to be out there is how professional the club is. And for me, I think I have a very, very clear vision of what we want on the sporting side. And I'm very positive about it. Like every time people ask me about this stuff with the operation, the license committee, all of these topics, they are quite tiring for me. But I can't stop talking about the sporting side of the club, because the combination of homegrown talents and also new players who maybe bring a bit of a different quality onto the pitch, in the sense of maybe more physical, more bringing what the English and the German league also stands for into the academy, in combination with what we have right now, I think will be a very, very refreshing and very dangerous combination for the new season. So therefore, I'm very positive. We also have, I think, 2 players which we could sign immediately. We will have them. We will have them at the game to watch. We have them around to get a feel for it, because my goal is not to sign players as soon as possible. My goal is to make sure that we bring the right players, not only on the pitch, but also in the attitude and in the character to the game and to the new season. Another thing is important is that we're very, very deeply in the different football markets. We have a group of people who are watching a lot of games for us. We have we have WhatsApp groups of actual current players who give us insight on what is going on in the locker room, what about their families, how do you know them, what do you know. So for us, the scouting is not just looking at data and then say, oh yeah, this is a good player and this is a good player. For us, it's really making sure that, especially in a city like this, with a club like this, that we do not take any risk, and that we bring the people in which we think are representing the values of the club and what we want to see on the pitch. And that's why I'm on the sporting side. I'm very excited and confident for the next season.
And then there is this player side. When can we expect the first new signings?
I mean, it could have been this week, but for us, I think there was so much going on, and I want to give new players the attention they deserve. So therefore, we can expect in the next 2 weeks the first official signing. And also, we obviously have a current squad where we need to see how and what we communicate there. We obviously knew who will be part of the coming season and who we plan with. And therefore, I think signings are also depending on which players are actually leaving the club, right? And therefore, I think, yeah, like I said, on the sporting side, I'm very positive. We have a lot of interest. We have a lot of Bundesliga academies who are interested in cooperating with us or working with us. So I don't think we need to rush anything here, because I think if people see who we are as a club, our facilities, and experience our fans, I think there's very little reason for young, ambitious players to not come to Arnhem, because this is the club where young talent has a big chance to get play time and to show themselves and prove themselves. So I think we always want to be that club, and I think there's a big chance to look over the border to make sure that we capture talent from there as well, to have the best possible squad in the academy, but also in the first team.
Yeah, the idea on the sporting side is looking promising, as you said. If you do have to put a goal for next season, what will it be?
The goal will be to play attractive football and to dominate on the pitch, right? That does not always translate to winning games, right? But I want to see that our plan and our strategy and our vision you can see on the pitch. The worst thing would be to look at this and not to see the development, not to see the implementation of what we've planned and what we've discussed and what we've set our goals at. So for me, obviously the ideal scenario is playing for promotion next year, and that is what I would love to see. But in the end, what's more important is that everybody subscribes and signs to the same goal. I want that that our clear vision will be executed in the operation and also on the pitch. And if we can see that, and if we can use that in combination with a healthy and stable environment, I think then we have won already a lot. And I think if everybody walks in the same direction and everybody subscribes to the same goal, I think you can achieve big things in and off on and off the pitch. And I think that is what I would love to see. Yeah, I think that's the fairest point. And yeah, everybody wants to see good football, but in the end, it's also making sure that our talents get their chance to see that the academy works well, that the messaging for the club is out there, that other clubs in the Netherlands and globally, or at least in Europe, look at Vitesse and say, okay, I can see where they're going, I can see what their plan is, and that is what in the end all is creating value for Arnhem and also for the club.
Then there is one other thing about our future. That's a thing that comes back very often, and that's the plan to buy the stadium.
Yeah.
Have there been talks between you and the owner of 𝗩𝗢𝗚𝗓𝗏?
Yes, so I think what was very important to us is that we reach out to the owner as soon as we take over the club. I think it was 2 days in, and we had a conversation with him. We introduced ourselves, and we said that we are open to any suggestion and regarding the stadium, because obviously it would be a big benefit for the club to have some control over the stadium, because I think the deals which have been signed in the past are not necessarily the most beneficial for the club, right? And there were different situations. I understand everybody does what they do. It's no point in talking about the past again. But in the end, yes, we reached out, and we got 2 proposals from the owner, which were both not necessarily satisfying to us, and felt a bit like a non-starter. Nevertheless, we started and having a conversation, asked for some documentation and some information about the future, because that is not a small investment, right? So, and we've asked for this information, and once we received these infos and we actually established a proper dialogue with the owner, then everything is possible. But this ball is not in our court.
Then there have been a lot of rumors about you as a shareholders trying to sell the club on a short term. Can you tell us if this is a possibility and what will happen?
Yeah, so for us, I think it's interesting and exactly what you said. There are a lot of rumors going around. Yeah, I've heard everything. You can imagine if you know the truth and then there's someone else coming this week and say this, and next week they say, oh, you bought it for that amount. Oh yeah, you're selling it, and we already know that someone is buying it, and all of that. Yeah, it's all speculations, which is very normal when you don't share information. But in the end, as I said earlier, our plan is to create value, because only if we create value, then it would make sense for us to divest. Yeah, we're 5 independent shareholders, so everybody in the end decides whatever they want to do. So even if I would say I would love to sell my part of the club, it's only 24.9%, right? So that someone comes and says these guys are trying to sell their club, it would need everyone individually to say, yeah, I want to sell this, especially after the legal and the intense work we've done to get here. It's not necessarily the case of saying, yeah, we come in and immediately want to sell, right? That is not necessarily the goal here, because I think adding value and using this once in a lifetime opportunity is a huge opportunity for all of us. But we also have to be honest to ourselves. And if someone, as you do, if you drive your car off the lot and you buy it for 20,000, and someone comes around and says, you know what, if you now give me the keys, you get 40,000, you would certainly consider that, right? And I think it's very natural, because in the end, this is an investment. And like I said, not a foundation or a charity. So for us, I would love to bring change and make sure that I create the value. If someone else thinks the value has already been created, or it fits into their strategy, and then I would never say, no, the club is not going to be sold. In the end, I think, and that is also me being me, I'm a very honest, straightforward person. And if someone offers a price which I can't refuse, at least for my 24.9%, I would certainly consider that. I think as everyone else would do who looks at investments on a daily basis. But the intention is not to sell the club immediately. The intention is to create value with the network and the expertise we have as the 5 shareholders.
Okay, and then, well, today is Friday, and we're starting the season campaign, season ticket campaign. Why today instead of waiting?
I think for me, and I think also to the organization, is what are we waiting for, right? We have everything we have to go into a new season. We're very comfortable with everything we're doing. We're working on the future every day since we're here. And I think that is also the message which should be put out there. We're working on the future. For us, this is what I think is the right thing to do, to show the people that we're moving forward, we're looking forward, we're not looking backwards. And for us, I think what I said earlier, I personally, and that's maybe me being naive, I expect I would expect that supporters and everyone around the club is also positive, because in the end, you guys have been through so much shit in the last like 10, 15, 20 years, yeah? But in the end, you are here. The club is here, the club is playing football, and this will be next season the same. So why should we not do the season ticket campaign and say we are prepping for the future, and the future is also our supporters, right? And they deserve to have a chance to sign up to the future as soon as possible. And I think the season ticket campaign is the start for us to offer our supporters and the fans to sign up for the future now.
One of the biggest issues for the supporters is the license for next year. How can the supporters rely on the club on this?
I think it's very simple, as I said earlier. There are certain obligations by the license committee or by the KVB which have to be fulfilled. We don't see an issue with any of these obligations. So therefore, if we believe the media and if we believe all the threats left, right and center, then you can never look forward. And for us, I think, I don't see, and I see the media and I see how pictures have been painted, but in the end, if you give us the benefit of the doubt, which I give everyone else, I think there is no reason for us to think we're not going to play professional football in Vitesse next year. And again, looking at the last years, like, we have always, and the club has always got through things. And there were a lot of stormy weathers in the past, and in the end of the day, the season started and Vitesse was part of that. And I don't see a reason why this shouldn't be the case. And I think what it needs and what everything needs, everyone in the organization here, everyone in Arnhem, everyone needs to go along together and be positive about the future, because everyone else wants us to be negative, right? Everything out there is negative, negative, negative. But I think for us, looking at this, looking at the opportunity and also just being passionate about what we're doing and the effort we put in, I think it's time to be positive. I think it's time to show that the supporters are there. The supporters are supporting the club. They're not supporting us. Like, it's not that we're there and saying, oh yeah, the money we use to buy new cars. That is like buying season tickets is also the contribution to the new season, right? It's also being part and showing we are Vitesse, we're strong, we went through all of these things, we're going through that again. And we're there and we subscribe and we prove that Vitesse is what it is, and this is Arnhem. And that's I think the biggest signal we can get from everyone is saying, yes, we are Arnhem, we're going to be Arnhem, we are always there, and we support this way going forward. That's what I'm hoping for, and that's why I'm there every day and most nights to make sure that I will give everything and I lead by example for people to follow. And I have to say, a lot of people said in front of me were very angry and saying they don't know anything, they don't know information, they think this is all a big hooks, and there's all these mirrors, the smoking mirrors. But in the end, after a half an hour conversation, after me being very transparent, very honest, and being myself, I think people understand that this is not just like a random idea here or like a random solution. We're working our ass off every day. And I think, and I invite everyone to have this conversation with me, right? And I do this in the organization. My door is always open. Everyone can come, everybody can say hi. And if there are questions or uncertainties, I'm there to help, right? And to bring the solution. And if I don't have the solution, it's at least listening, understanding the problems, understanding the fear, to make sure that we can solve for that in the future. And I think that is something which is very, very important for all of us. And in the end, the club can only go one direction together. And that involves every single person, every volunteer, every supporter, everyone. And that is what I hope we represent as shareholders, is putting our money where our mouth is and being in there, taking the debt off the club, which we already did, and now working on the future. And that is kind of what we're hoping for will be perceived well, because actions speak louder than words. And that's what we stand for.
Then one last thing about this license. What do you expect in terms of the scheduling in the license?
Yeah, in the end, I'm not a KNVB expert. I obviously know what's in the regulations, so we need to provide everything by the 15th of June. And then we should, in an ideal case, just hear back that everything is fine and we can move on. Everything else right now, it would be looking into a glass ball. I have no idea. We as Vitesse do whatever we can, and we have done whatever we can to make sure everything is there to have no issues with playing professional football next year. And I think that is the message I can only repeat, because in the end, I would have thought this topic would have been over a month and a half ago, but we're still talking about it. So it's obviously not all logical and all very clear and straightforward, and therefore just expecting or speculating I don't think makes any sense, because you never know.
Then the very last question, is there something you would like to say towards our supporters?
I think I've said already quite a lot just a few minutes ago, but what I want to encourage people is to think about why these informations are out there. People need to do their jobs, right? If I have to fill the newspaper every day and I don't get information, I will fill it either way, because that's my job and that's what I get paid for. But what I would encourage someone or a supporter who's a supporter of the club for maybe a year, maybe 10 years, maybe 2 generations, right? Just instead of like taking all this public information and just assuming that it's true, just asking yourself a few questions. And if you can answer them, and answer them based on, okay, yeah, I understand why this is happening because these are the grounds for this. Yeah, I understand that this has been said because they have the proof. And if that's not the case, then maybe just pick up the phone or speak to our staff or our people and say, you know what, I don't understand. Can we just have a conversation, right? Or we have management updates, just write your questions in the management updates so we can inform, right? Because for me, it is, we are as transparent as we can be in the current situation which Vitesse is in. And I think what I want to encourage people is, and especially supporters, is just believe in the professionalism of the organization, and believe in that there will be football next year. And I can promise you, from the minute the next season starts, and also once the topics of the KNVB are over, we will be back to being a communicative, positive, reinforcing club. But at the moment, we think that the best for the club is to go down this route. And this has nothing to do with not being sure what we want to do. It has nothing to do with trying to upset the fans or not being transparent. It has to do with us believing that this is the best strategy to make sure that we play professional football next year. And if we do that, and if everything works out, then we will be back to communicating and to being this open club and we're working on it. You know that we're working on creating a lot of information on the background of an organization, making sure that we can actually put the spotlight not only on the first team, not only on the academy, but also the people who are, like I said, the volunteers, the people who work in the organization, because Vitesse is more than just the first team. It's more than just the academy. It's all of us. And I think that is really what is important, and reducing the bad image or the bad mindset towards Vitesse based on some articles is not fair to the whole organization. Even if you're unhappy with me or unhappy with any of the shareholders, it's unfair to the organization to just take this 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 articles, which are mainly on us, none of the people on the organization, and take this out on the whole club, which is I don't think is fair. And I also don't think that we gave anyone a reason to doubt that we are here for the better. And I think that is something which I stand for and stand by every day.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.